When I Google teaching about genocides, I get basically nothing about the Holodomor. So this is critical because this is what teachers do. That's where they look for information. We need to get ourselves into existing websites. I'm a teacher in the New York City school system. As an educator, I know teachers need something really quick, easy, and all. And I worked with my mother to develop this PowerPoint and addendum, which if any of you, want, I can give you electronic copies. But we've used it quite a bit presenting, and it's really easy and it's effective. And I think it's, visually engaging.
Genocide courses in schools are already available. The genocide course that the Toronto District School Board brought in eliminated, did not include the Holodomor. And we are going after them. It's been 3 years, it's actually 4 years since they've had it. It's a very popular course, and all over across the country people are buying rights to use the course because it's a locally developed course. They have not included us. They promised to have a review, they haven't done it. We were very lucky to have Edmonton. I've done some workshops in Edmonton, and the Edmonton Catholic School Board is on board with this as well. They're very actively involved in Holodomor Memorial Day, and also Regina in Saskatchewan have done it, the Catholics. The Catholics are doing very well. Very important to train the teachers. But the most important thing is to not just have 1 or 2 people doing it. We now have to train the trainers. We need to educate politicians all the time, school officials, about what the Holodomor is about. Consensus. We have a problem with this, with numbers. Though, it seems the Ukrainians seem to argue about this. The Ukrainians are stuck on the numbers issues. And so I think this is something we have to deal with. We can't deal with, direct deaths versus non-births and things like that. We have to get the academics to come down to some kind of a consensus so we could have a consensus. More teaching materials are needed for all grade levels. Some areas require teaching materials in the French language, which we'll have to do in Canada. Excellent website for teachers. Mark keeps telling me that that's the key to success. So that's what we're going to be working on. Canadian Museum of Human Rights. They have promised they were going to have the Holodomor interment, and I have dealt with the Chief Research Director, and today the Ukrainian community is up in arms because we are not prominently or permanently going to be in there. Holodomor denial is a thriving business even to this very day, as we know. No feature films available on the Holodomor. Wouldn't that be something, eh? Schindler's List style. We would be very successful.
One of the, new hip terms in education is the flipped classroom, where a lot of the learning happens outside the class, and then what you come in is reinforcing, discussing, debating, and you're really just building on. So yes, they read the article on their own time. They do all of this preparation and discussion on their own time. That's their homework. I don't do read chapter 1, answer questions 1 to 10. Our young generation of students, they do a lot of their homework between 11 and 2 in the morning. That's just the reality. I don't use binders, I don't use notebooks, we don't use paper. A critical part of my class is non-judgmentalism. You need to, for to have academic integrity and growth, you need to be able to ask tough questions, you need to be able to ask dumb questions, smart questions, you need to be able to ask them all. The critical element of it is, part of it is what happens online, but so much of it is what happens in the classroom.
What we do in Manitoba education, I know Valentina mentioned about the curricular outcomes, but what I found in my supporting other educators is that sometimes they're so busy teaching, they don't have a lot of time to figure out what are those outcomes that we have to be teaching to. Mm-hmm. What I've tried to do is give you a glimpse, an overview of different curricular outcomes, because we approach Holodomor through an curricularly integrated approach, and we're looking at all kinds of connection through social studies, the main one, and English language arts, or French language arts, the other one.
We also include a certain group of people, and these are the Mennonites. Where I live, where I come from, there's an area where Mennonites came in the 20s and the 30s, and they lived through Holodomor. We always include them, and I know that the Mennonites have taken it upon themselves to take and put up a statue in Hortetia, where many of them came from, Zaporizhia, because that's where they come from. So I think we should always include other people that have lived have lived through this. We've got to also include other people and not just Ukrainians with a Ukrainian name.
In 2007, when we did the first workshop for the Canadian Centre for Genocide Education, the fellow who was speaking wanted to know if there were any survivors among the teachers that were there. And we were all listening, looking around. There were no survivors. He said, any children of survivors? And the second person that put up their hand, she said, I'm a Mennonite, and my parents lived through the Holodomor.
There's also a North Star. This is an American movie, or film actually, put out in 1940s, and the various Hollywood actors which impact. Now keep in mind the Americans and Stalin that time were friends. And so in 1940, this American film shows how Hollywood tried to show the positive side of the newfound Soviet allies. All right? And the impact becomes even much more important because they're using now Hollywood actors at that particular time or age to make their message how beautiful and how everything is positive. There's also a concern with regards to technology and pedagogy. And being as an educator, I'm interested in the technology and pedagogy aspect. So on the left-hand side, if you look, that's where your children, your adolescents, walk with those items in their hands. And sometimes I refer to my students as they're very religious because they're always heads down. Reading in class or sending text under the tables. On the right-hand side is the chalk and talk instructor or pedagogue delivery of content, on the chalkboard and so on. So that's basically changing the setting in which we're functioning dramatically as we interact with our students.